back in 2021, literally thousands of Marylanders pushed for meaningful police reform in Maryland. Through that effort, we were able to pass the Maryland Police Accountability Act, which made some significant progress in terms of, for the most part, repealing the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights, having some push towards MPIA reform, and also pushing for the implementation of police accountability boards that were meant to be structured, were inspired by independent civilian oversight bodies, such as what we had and still have in Baltimore City with the Civilian Review Board, where there's an independent investigatory powers. They're able to make recommendations on discipline and so on. Where we ended up landing was that was split between the PAB and the Administrative Charging Committee. And every county, all 24 jurisdictions, including the city, had to have a police accountability board online this year, where they will be reviewing outcomes of disciplinary matters, identifying individuals that would serve on the Administrative Charging Committee, which is the body that reviews investigations and makes decisions on whether or not the recommendations for discipline are what's needed, and basically provide, just in general, some space across the state at a local level for there to be some level of civilian oversight. This is what we got through is not fully independent civilian oversight, but it is a clear step in the right direction, which is also why there's been so much pushback across the state. And so we want to take a moment to hear from folks from different counties on how they've been able to hold the line and some of the lessons that they learned from their local organizing efforts. So I believe that Erica McDonald is going to be starting us off with the efforts in Baltimore County. So I will turn it over to you, Erica.
Thank you, Sergio. Hi, everyone. I'm Erica McDonald from Baltimore County, and my pronouns are she, her. And I'm a member of the Baltimore County Coalition for Police Accountability. Today, I'm going to talk about the coalition.
Oh, Erica, I think you muted yourself.
How weird. Sorry about that. Just to back up, I'm a member of the Baltimore County Coalition for Police Accountability. And today I want to talk to you about the coalition's efforts. But I want to start by saying that the seeds of this coalition were planted at the ACLU Grassroots training 2 years ago. And I'm grateful for all that the ACLU does to support and organize advocates in Maryland. So I want to start by talking about why police reform is needed in Baltimore County. Baltimore County has a long history of police misconduct. The IID annual report issued by the Attorney General's office in November ranks Baltimore County first in the state for officer-involved deaths, tied with Baltimore City. Baltimore County police killings of 2 Black residents in 2016 and 2019 resulted in multi-million-dollar settlements, but no prosecution of the police officers that are involved. And the police scorecard found that Baltimore County police kill more than 66% of departments nationwide and kill more unarmed people than 79% of departments. And they arrest Black people at 2.7 times more for low-level and non-violent offenses. So there's obvious evidence of racial bias in policing in Baltimore County. For example, police misconduct disproportionately impacts people of color. In 2020, all of the complaints of police misconduct, 71% were Black or Hispanic residents, who make up only 36% of the population. Also, traffic stop data from 2018 shows that 62% of stops in Baltimore County were Black or Hispanic residents, again, contrasted with the 36% of the population. So there's also a lack of accountability and transparency in police misconduct investigations. A 2020 study found that only 11% of civilian complaints against Baltimore County police officers were sustained. Only 4% of civilian complaints of excessive force were upheld. And because of a loophole in the Maryland Police Accountability Act of 2021, police misconduct investigations investigations are still conducted by internal affairs with no civilian participation in Baltimore County until July of 2023. And new police policy subverts the release of MPIA requests by allowing the FOP in Baltimore County to review them and file countersuits against their release, which I'll talk a little more about. So next slide. In response to these problems, these organizations, as well as concerned residents, have been working together on police accountability reform. Advocates have had to fight for accountability and transparency in establishing the Police Accountability Board, or PAB, in Baltimore County, calling for community involvement in creation of the PAB and its implementation. But the FOP influence and resistance from elected officials have prevented real community oversight in Baltimore County. Next slide. Immediately following the passage of the Maryland Police Accountability Act of 2021, Baltimore County and the FOP approved a memorandum of understanding that extends LEOBR protections through July of 2023, delaying the implementation of the PAB and administrative charging committees, or ACCs, from hearing misconduct complaints. So advocates pushed for a strong PAB that had independent power to investigate misconduct, independent legal counsel, adequate funding, representation of people who are disproportionately impacted by police violence, and limits to participation by people with direct connections to law enforcement. And while we achieved some of these goals, disappointingly, we were not able to get most of what we've advocated for implemented, and our challenges are ongoing. So currently, there are two major issues that the BCCPA is fighting. The first is police influence on the PAB and the ACC. The newly created PAB includes multiple members with connections to law enforcement and a retired police officer who was appointed to serve on the Administrative Charging Committee. Members of the PAB are already meeting with law enforcement and PCRCs, which are tasked with securing public cooperation with the Baltimore County Police Department. During PAB meetings, it's become obvious that they do not take seriously their responsibility in providing citizen oversight, but rather are focused on relationship with police. And because the PAB legislation in Baltimore County did not preclude the participation of people with connections to law enforcement, we're now in a position of arguing whether members of the PAB are free of bias or members even of the FOP. So the County Council votes on Monday on a bill outlining who can participate in the ACC. So if you live in Baltimore County, please complete the action alert, which I'll drop in the chat when I'm done talking, demanding that police not be appointed to the ACC. Additionally, a recent policy change in the county, implemented by the county and the Baltimore County Police Department, gives the FOP the ability to intervene in the MPIA requests, with the result of shielding police misconduct records made discoverable by Anton's Law. This is comparable to the effort by Montgomery County FOP to subvert the new law and it's currently in the courts. The BCCPA created an action alert and wrote an op-ed on this issue, and we're waiting to see the outcome of the Montgomery County lawsuit before deciding how else to push back against it. And so it's clear that the FOP and the Baltimore County Police Department are attempting to subvert statewide reforms and limit police accountability and community oversight at the local level. And this is not just in Baltimore County, it's throughout the state. The BCCPA continues to fight for real police accountability in Baltimore County. And I will also drop into the chat our Twitter and website and contact information. So we invite any of you in Baltimore County to join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. And on that, to that note too, about seeing similar issues across the state, I want to turn it over to Naquita and Emily from Calvert County Prism, an incredible volunteer-led coalition of folks across Southern Maryland, and definitely with a focus in Calvert County, who've been really trying to hold down the line there, not just around PABs, but general police accountability, and pushing back on racist infrastructure in the county. So with that, I turn over to Naquita and Emily.
Good morning, everyone. How's it going? I'm Naquita, and I got my partner Emily on standby in case I miss anything. And I'll try to keep this brief because I know we have a lot of work to do today, all good work, of course. So Calvert County PRISM is an organization that came together out of response to police brutality following a peaceful protest, no less. In our time together, we have worked with numerous community members who've come forward about issues with the police, people who are afraid of retaliation, so they come to us to help stand up for them. So when the PAB came into play, we were absolutely going to get on board and try to help to make sure that it was the best PAB it could possibly be. However, unfortunately, Calvert County is a county that is enamored by police officers. One of the larger cases we had coming into creating PRISM was one around Demetrius Hall, who was mysteriously killed, more than likely by the police officers. But that case is now so old that there's very little that can be done for it. But even more recently, there have been drunk police officers who have killed people in their own vehicles. And they've had as little as a $600 fine for killing an individual. So when the PAB was created, of course, the police were going to be involved. In the beginning, the Fraternal Order of Police was involved in deciding who would receive surveys about how the PAB would be constructed. This survey was sent out only to 200 citizens. I believe there's over 90,000 people who live in Calvert County, but only 200 citizens received this survey, and the majority of them were either Calvert County government employees or relatives of someone who was serving on that government. Additionally, they added that when the complaints were filed, the Calvert County Sheriff's Office would have a say in deciding whether or not this was a complaint that needed to go on to the PAB. So from the beginning, the Fraternal Order of Police, the Calvert County Sheriff's Office has been involved in deciding the makeup and the process of our Police Accountability Board. Of course, as citizens, we do not like this. We stand against it. We speak out against it constantly. So in our most recent County Police Accountability Board meeting, we were listening in and they were sharing about their process, about how complaints would move through the Police Accountability Board onto the ACC. And basically what was said was the Calvert County State's Sheriff's Department, along with the state's attorney, could decide if the misconduct was criminal or not. And they deliberately stated that they will not follow up on speeding or aggressive, inappropriate language or racial complaints of that nature. This is said in the public meeting. A community member, part of our League of Women Voters here, participated in this open public forum at the end of this meeting and asked very specific questions that were redirected to, well, if you have been following along, you can just check our site that's already been put out to everyone. Again, minimizing the involvement that community members have had in the PAB creation, along with the amount of care and concern that we have to ensure that our PAB is the best that it can be. So as it comes into the deliberate undermining of how the conduct will be investigated, the Sheriff's Office, the state's attorney, the Fraternal Order of Police are all working together to ensure that as little as possible is being brought to the Police Accountability Board. In addition to that, a lot of what is brought to the Police Accountability Board will also be worked out in mediation, which is a separate county organization. However, there will be no information given to the public about who is sent to mediation and what is to come out of them going to mediation. Very little hope has been given on the ends that the Police Accountability Board will be effective in changing the current culture of this county that places the police on this pedestal. And still much, much more work is needed to be done. So we are looking forward to coming together again in February to work on updating this policy and making it more strong against this enamorment with police officers and giving our citizens more power and more freedom to truly come forward and share their testimonies. Because now I believe we've only received 30 complaints to our Police Accountability Board. However, in the short 2 years that we have been Calvert County Prison, we've received complaints from numerous people about numerous interactions with the police. And it is important that we continue to keep our ears and eyes open to uplift our citizens and to ensure that our PAB will take their complaints seriously and police officers will be held accountable for the wrongs that they do in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Naquita. And I can't stress enough as you're talking through this, and from both examples that have been shared so far, is again, how much energy has been spent to hold the line on something that where there's already just very little oversight. And so it can be it can definitely be concerning, to say the least, but it's also a reminder of just how much they fear any level of oversight. So I just want to appreciate everyone who's been making this push. And on that note, I want to turn it over to Dawn from Prince George's County, who knows this all too well and has been pushing not just around PAB implementation, but on police accountability for years and years. Perhaps one of the most inspiring leaders I've had a chance to work with through my work here at the ACLU. And so, Dawn, thank you for joining us. And yeah, we look forward to your take on how things have been in Prince George's.
Thanks, Sergio. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Dawn Dalton. I'm a member of the Prince George's County Coalition for Police Accountability and MCJPA. I just wanted to share with you our experience in Prince George's County. Of course, the two young ladies who spoke ahead of me we have similar history when it comes to the egregious acts that have taken place in our counties. But I'll go on and share that in Prince George's County, we've had very notable murders at the hands of police officers. There's William Green, there's Leonard Shan, DeMonte Ward Blake, very notable cases. We also have older cases like the Archie Elliott case. Clearly, we've had a lot of cover up where all of those cases are concerned. And so I'll start with the selection process. And after the laws that were passed in 2021, we as a coalition of community members and advocates and directly impacted family members go into the county council to follow and participate publicly in the process of the selection of the PAB board members. We were surprised when we went to our first hearing to see that the county executive was being allowed to make all 11 selections. We as community members and advocates fought that. And I mean, we fought really, really hard. We initially were met with pushback stating that that was the law, that was the way that this process was supposed to take place. And thank God we had Yarnette on hand and lawyers on hand and found out that we, the community members, were right. Which actually made it so that that particular meeting had to be pushed back. It had to be rescheduled until they were able to go back and work this out. The next meeting that was taking place or that was scheduled for the county council, we learned at that point that our county exec lobbied really, really hard, not just our county executive, but also the FOP president, to make it so that the county executive was able to select 5 members. The county council would select 5 members, and the county executive will also select the 6th and final member, which would be the chair. We're not really happy with that, but that does give us something to work with, and that's better than handing over all 11 selections to our county executive. I would like to flag the fact that one of my concerns, and I know the concerns of my colleagues, is the fact that our county executive was the state's attorney for 8 years. So she has actually had experience in dealing with some of those officers that committed a lot of these egregious acts, and nothing was ever done. So there are probably many, many community members that are incarcerated at this time, lives ruined because egregious officers were able to file false charges, brutalize, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of the reasons why we were extremely concerned with our county executive being able to make 11 selections. At this point, the PAB board has been put in place. All members have been selected. There have been 4 meetings, I believe, thus far. We're tracking what's going on in those meetings. Actually, the president has been selected. His name is Kevin, I believe it's Davil or Deval, I'm not sure, sorry. But anyway, you know, I will say that as community members and after going for the frustrating meetings that we had at the county council with community members, directly impacted family members, giving testimony as to, you know, why this makeup should be a certain way in favor of the community. You know, getting county council members that are saying how, you know, they were in support of Miss Elliott. They were in support of this. They were in support of that. They want to get this right, you know, making promises and then voting against the will of the people in the best interest of the people. I can say that a lot of us were very drained after this process, but I would like to also add that we are rejuvenated and we are ready to go to work. What was passed, if we weren't happy with it, we're still ready to fight. So we left there. Some of us went to NACO where we were kind of given like solid advice, telling us not to give up. A lot of police accountability boards and citizens that are, you know, giving great oversight to what's happening with the police accountability boards in other states across the country, you know, were met with a lot of resistance as well. This is the process. This is a new baby for us. So we just have to keep pushing forward.